I've lived in Beijing for so many years, yet I can count the number of times I visited Tianjin on one hand. People always say Tianjin is a fun place to visit, so how did I manage to overlook it for so long? Recently, I happened to notice that people have finally started talking about Tianjin again. To my surprise, however, the discussion topics were things like, does Tianjin have a future? Or, is Tianjin a truly international metropolis? Clearly, Tianjin has faded from the public spotlight. So, how should I go about talking about Tianjin? After spending a week there, I discovered that my title emerged effortlessly. It was that sense of ease, whether inherent in the people of Tianjin or in the city itself, that revealed itself so naturally. And that is how you ended up seeing the title of today's video. I feel it is necessary to help you review exactly how Tianjin came to be, to trace its origins. The story of Tianjin begins with the relocation of the capital to Beijing during the Jin dynasty. In this sense, Tianjin has maintained a symbiotic relationship with Beijing right up to the present day. Without Beijing, naturally, there would be no Tianjin. Starting in the Yuan dynasty, Tianjin emerged as a bustling hub where merchant ships congregated and the grain transport system flourished. By the Ming dynasty, Zhu Di, recognizing the immense strategic importance of this location, bestowed upon it the name Tianjin Wei. So, as you can see, Tianjin has never been just an ordinary city. It is a military gateway standing guard over the imperial capital, as well as a commercial metropolis whose prosperity was born of the waterways. In the very DNA of the children of the High River, one finds both the steely resolve of a military stronghold and the open-minded inclusivity of a bustling port city. Yet, curiously enough, I have not sensed these historical traits or characteristics reflected in the people of Tianjin themselves. So, what exactly constitutes the true temperament of Tianjin? Even if Tianjin no longer captures the public's attention quite as it once did, its architecture of the nations, those buildings reflecting a global array of styles, remains an undeniable hallmark of the city. Indeed, the current appearance of Tianjin's urban core was largely shaped by the structures left behind by foreigners in eras past. Having recently photographed Shanghai,
这五大道里面啊，这些老街道的宽度啊都非常合适，就是人家当时啊这么设计，就是为了让人方便行走的。但现在呢，就你很多这个市里面外面这些街道啊，都巨宽无比，双向都有4车道、5车道的路，那你等于就只能开车呗，你走起路来去哪儿都不方便，这跟北京是一个道理。但你看上海就要好很多，而且很多南方城市就是它建的楼很高，所以它不会有这种，它街道里面啊也不会有这种大宽马路的那种感觉。
A city likewise renowned for its international architecture, I found myself wondering, how, exactly, do Tianjin's architectural treasures differ from those of Shanghai? Many people enjoy strolling through Tianjin's 5 great avenues, Woodadale, and for most visitors, it is a must-see destination. Yet, to label this district a mere tourist attraction feels somewhat unfair to the 5 great avenues. What I genuinely sensed here, instead, was a distinct air of neglect. Many of the historic buildings here are currently occupied by government agencies, while others have been completely cordoned off for preservation, leaving visitors to admire them only from the outside, peering over high walls. Unlike in Shanghai, where such historic structures have been repurposed and utilized to great effect, the experience here is limited, aside from simply walking the streets, imagining what it might have felt like to stroll these very paths in days gone by. There is little else to do. You won't find upscale patisseries or Western-style coffee shops here. What you will find is authentic, local Tianjin cuisine. In the north, the vegetation in spring tends to look a bit listless. One must wait until the height of summer to see their true, vibrant colors fully unleashed. Yet, It feels as though people are already impatient to shake off the gloom brought on by winter. This seemingly ordinary little park is absolutely teeming with people, and it isn't even the weekend. Just by being in this park, you can truly get a feel for the rhythm of Tianjin. The Five Great Avenues district is a major tourist zone, and I happened to arrive right in the middle of the crabapple blossom viewing season. This brought me face to face with a scene I absolutely detest. It wasn't just that the place was overrun with tourists. It felt less like viewing flowers and more like viewing people. And to be honest, viewing some rather peculiar people at that. At moments like this, I cannot help but marvel at the obsession Chinese women have with taking photos. If you were to look at their pictures, you would discover that they have no interest in the scenery, no interest in the culture, and no interest in the history. They don't even seem interested in the crabapple blossoms themselves. They are interested only in themselves. Alright, let me clarify. The rant above isn't directed specifically at Tianjin, because these kinds of people behave exactly the same way no matter where they go. If you were to ask me what my favorite place in Tianjin is, I would likely tell you without a moment's hesitation. Minyuan. This is because every time I visit, I get the distinct feeling that this, and nowhere else, is where the true soul of Tianjin resides. Originally, this site was a stadium commissioned by a Scottish Olympic champion who was born right here in Tianjin. In its heyday, it stood as one of Asia's premier multi-purpose sports venues. The name Minyuan itself carries a beautiful significance. A public garden donated by the people. I find it hard to imagine this place evoking the same unique atmosphere if it were merely a standard stadium turf, or simply a collection of old European-style buildings. Either alone could capture the specific feeling that exists here today. It is a feeling that compels you, the moment you step inside, to simply sit down right where you stand, and in doing so, the rhythm of Tianjin and your own personal rhythm instantly merge into one.
我已经是第二次来这儿了，就是这个名园啊，我觉得就是天津的灵魂。你怎么描述这呢？就是我第一次来的时候就发现那也是个工作日，所有人都坐那儿，然后什么事儿都没有，就跟现在这些，今天不知道为什么人这么多，可能是因为这个海棠花开了，然后就坐着。什么也不干，这种事情，而且不是老年人，是年轻人，就跟你在大学的那种感觉特别像。你现在看的这个名园啊，还挺大的，但是呢，我今天觉得甚至这个地方还应该再大点，甚至大个4倍，它都是非常合理。就像那个，我去吉隆坡有一个广场，我忘了叫什么了，好像是什么解放广场还是什么广场，反正就特别特别大，然后所有人就坐着。我觉得这种地方你在北京怎么找呢？找到了他也没人在这坐呀，但他都在工作，这多舒服啊！坐到别的地方都不舒服。这就是我之前来名园也是这样，什么时候来名园都是一堆人坐在这儿。
Truly, I adore Minyuan, so much so that I wanted to dedicate a few extra shots to it. It is thanks to Minyuan that I feel Tianjin is able to completely transcend the drab, arid monotony that often characterizes the North China Plain. It is also what endows Tianjin with a sense of relaxed ease, a quality that sets it distinctly apart from Beijing.
下雨了啊，瞬间清场，草坪上人都没了。但是这个建筑的厉害的地方就是在于，它就跟骑楼一样，堵在这儿，大家都在这儿。
This sense of relaxed ease isn't unique to Minuan. You would absolutely never imagine that you could experience this very same Tianjin-style tranquility right here at the Little White Building. From a distance, many people, myself included, would assume that this structure is just as aged as the other historic buildings scattered across Tianjin. Yet, in reality, this concert hall is a veritable youngster. Its history traces back from the original Pinyin cinema to its subsequent incarnation as a concert hall, culminating in the completion of this new facility in 2009. You really must view it from afar, for from a distance, the European architectural flair feels truly authentic. Step closer, however, and that sense of relaxed ease is immediately laid bare. The stone columns, which ought to be solid and unyielding, have been replaced by an assemblage of pieced-together stone slabs, featuring seams and gaps of a sort I have never encountered in any of the city's truly historic, aged structures. In fact, Tianjin is dotted with all sorts of European-style buildings, so many, in fact, that you can hardly tell which ones are genuine historical structures and which are not. While I acknowledge that this has become an integral part of Tianjin's distinctive character, I cannot deny that these buildings serve merely as a backdrop. They can never truly evoke for me a genuine sense of European lifestyle or atmosphere within the city. This was particularly evident when I visited the Italian-style street, a place where, I can state with absolute certainty, there isn't a single trace of authentic Italian flavor. Yet, when I arrived at the site of the former Italian barracks, I was genuinely, and pleasantly, surprised by the palpable sense of relaxation I found there.
就这是可能是我去过的最乱的啊，没有之一啊，就是那种什么旅游步行街吧，这不算步行街吧，这才能开车。然后几乎是，就你感受不到半点的意大利的氛围，相信我，我去过意大利，就是可能这个车停的都。当然，意大利旁边那个小街道也有车，但是肯定不像是这样，就会给你那种就是乱八七糟的感觉。然后，我的确是对这个毫无这个言语。就是如果你实在没有办法，你在华北地区实在没有办法，你还是可以来感受一下这个意大利。但是能不能感受到呢？全凭个人，反正我是感受不到。啊，这里是意大利的兵营旧址。啊，咱也不是说不能商业化，就是的确，它只是一个背景。它并不是你来的理由。如果你为了这个来这里呢，显然会让你失望。这个兵营你是感受不到任何兵营的氛围。反正天津的文旅啊，我只能说这么多。再说多了，估计要被投诉。我认为这种东西它应该是保留住原来的风貌的，然后你把这些东西专门单独辟一块地方再开是合适的。不被可惜啊，但是那个名园呢就没有问题。
Beyond the European-style architecture, the Tianjin Cultural Center serves a multifaceted role. It functions as a park, a library, a theater, a museum, and a shopping complex. While you might certainly encounter such expansive spaces and colossal, architecturally striking structures in other cities, I feel that the buildings here finally transcend the typical motivations. They are either merely the grandiose visions of some individual seeking personal glory, nor are they simply tools to burnish a city's public image. Rather, they truly return to the realm of everyday life for ordinary people.
他说宏大吧，但是宏大是能让你感受到的，它不是那种特别粗制滥造的宏大，或者说高高在上的宏大。那边是天津大剧院，好像是。哎呀，这个地方确实让你感觉挺高级的。
Exploring such a vast complex in a single visit is obviously unrealistic. Therefore, on this occasion, I chose to focus my wanderings on the museum.
这些就是天津的特色了，杨柳青和泥人张。
Although the museum's collection of rare artifacts is not particularly extensive, it houses one true gem, Fan Quan's snowy forests and cold peaks. Just how precious is it? It is the only authentic masterpiece by Fan Quan currently located on the Chinese mainland. The other, Travelers Among Streams and Mountains, resides in the National Palace Museum in Taipei, making this piece the undisputed crown jewel of the institution. Even though the version currently on display here is a replica, it remains constantly surrounded by crowds. I had to wait for quite some time before finding a moment when no one was taking photos, allowing me to snap a quick picture myself. Additionally, the Grand Canal Transport Scroll, classified as a national first-class cultural relic, is also well worth a visit. Inside this museum, various scenes depicting daily life in early Tianjin have been meticulously recreated. I consider it an excellent place to truly get a feel for the bygone prosperity of Tianjin Way. Of course, there is also a dedicated exhibition area featuring two of Tianjin's most distinctive cultural treasures, Niranzhang, clay figure Zhang, and Yangliuqing New Year prints. Although I had often heard about them, this visit marked the very first time I had ever seen authentic examples of these two folk art forms in person. The pieces on display here are truly of exceptional quality, so much so, in fact, that at the end of this video episode, I decided to make a special trip out to Yangliuqing itself. People may visit Tianjin for its diverse array of international architecture, but fundamentally, it is the lifestyle of the city that serves as the true draw for most visitors. And among the most significant factors contributing to that appeal is, without a doubt, the food.
这大概是我来过最热闹的，也不是人最多的早市了吧？是不是我早市去的少？可能是因为假期什么的。
I've noticed that it seems many people make a special pilgrimage to Tianjin specifically for breakfast. My visit happened to coincide with the Qingming festival holiday, though I certainly hadn't anticipated such massive crowds. Every single jianbing, savory crepe, stall was fronted by a long, winding line of people. In some spots, you practically had to turn sideways just to squeeze your way through.
这我也想拍会儿，但是人太多了。
后面这一根，还有几块的，不要辣椒。好嘞。
这得排多久啊？
也快。你给吧。好嘞。拿袋子啊，拿两个纸袋子。
Determined to experience the famous Northwest Corner District, I arrived first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. It had been far too long since I last enjoyed a jianbing, so what could I do? I got in line.
啊，
两个果子，两个煎饼果子，就是一个10元的，一个15的。
啊，行，
然后再一个锅包菜，
一个12的，一个15的。
不是一个10元的，一个15的，然后再来一个锅包菜，然后再来2个那个卷圈。
单卷圈还是加大饼？加饼吗？卷圈？
不加饼，只要卷圈。32是吧
？38。
天哪，我这是排了将近1个小时，这2个东西。然后现在还找不到。
I've been standing in line here for nearly an hour just for this jianbingguizi, savory crepe. I'd honestly advise everyone to avoid coming here during the holidays. Of course, no matter where you go during a holiday, it's probably impossible to escape the crowds. On the plus side, the food here is genuinely inexpensive. I bought this, jumbo, jianbing. I don't think I've ever eaten one this big before, and it costs only 15 yuan. I also picked up a bowl of chatong, millet gruel, for just 10 yuan. After downing those 2 items, I felt completely stuffed, enough to cover my entire day's food intake. It feels like a family of 3 could come here to eat and walk away with full, satisfied bellies for a total cost of just 100 yuan. This morning market at Zenanjiu has been around for a century now. It's wonderful that Tianjin still preserves places like this that hold on to their traditions so steadfastly. I feel that in a few more years, it could even qualify for, and be designated as, an intangible cultural heritage site.
你看这么多人等着人看跳水，说好的2点，现在都3点多，快结束了。
小妹儿，想跳吗？那个大皮包水里，我给捞皮包去了，见义勇为了。那个大皮包里搁泡沫泡起来，他跳完，我就那个捞那包。
Nowadays, coming to Tianjin to watch the uncles diving has become a major local attraction. The only catch, however, is that my visit happened to coincide with the Qingming festival, which meant the police were back out in force to maintain order. Alright, I think it's time to have a brief chat about the people of Tianjin. Fundamentally, there isn't a huge difference between the people of Tianjin and those of Beijing. To an outsider, aside from the distinct accents, both groups seem to share a love for chatting and having a good time. Of course, Beijingers often project an air of superiority, at least in the eyes of outsiders. But if you were to visit Tianjin, you certainly wouldn't sense that same haughty demeanor from the locals. Instead, the people of Tianjin exude a sense of ease, humor, and a complete lack of anxiety. When it comes to clothing, Tianjin locals tend to favor particularly loose-fitting styles. The women, too, rarely wear makeup. I suspect they simply step out the door looking exactly as they do at home. I imagine that if someone from Shanghai were to visit Tianjin, they would immediately notice this stark contrast. Furthermore, there are an astonishing number of overweight people in Tianjin. It is likely the city with the highest prevalence of larger-bodied individuals among all the places I've visited so far. Why does a city have so many heavy-set residents? It boils down to a "who cares?" attitude. As long as you're happy, nothing else really matters. Beijing, too, had a great many overweight residents 20 years ago. However, as Beijing evolved into a major hub for both technology and the economy, the prevalence of larger body types began to decline. Quite clearly, Tianjin does not face the kind of pressure that Beijing does, and has thus maintained this sense of relaxed ease right up to the present day. At first I, too, felt that Tianjin no longer possessed the same magnetic pull it once did. Moreover, for the past few years, the city's population had been steadily declining. However, it seems this trend began to reverse last year. My conclusion is that, historically, Tianjin has been subject to a siphon effect from Beijing, a result of Beijing's formidable economic dominance. Yet, it now appears that this advantage is waning, and as far as I can foresee in the near future, this trend is unlikely to change. But what of Tianjin? What exactly constitutes its advantage? Tianjin offers life, specifically, that distinct sense of freedom from anxiety, and a profound ease of being. It is as if the people of Tianjin have never felt the need to strive desperately for anything. The prevailing vibe they project is one of simply fooling around. They never get worked up or red-faced over trivial details. Whenever they encounter something frustrating, they simply brush it aside with a touch of humor. Whether Tianjin hosts a major sports tournament, or convenes a G1, G2, or G100 summit, is of absolutely no consequence to them. They couldn't care less whether their city ranks in the top 10 for GDP, nor do they get hung up on how outsiders choose to judge their city. That is precisely why you see the old-timers diving so nonchalantly into the high river, that unique sense of unhurried ease. Where else in the world could you possibly find that? Moreover, no one ever forced the people of Tianjin to change, nor did they ever feel any internal pressure to do so. Consequently, their attitude became, "To hell with money, let's just have a good time." And so, Tianjin evolved into a northern city far more livable than Beijing. In truth, Beijingers share the same temperament, yet Beijing, ever since the days when emperors resided there, has never truly been its own master. This remains true even today, now that it serves as the national capital. Is there anything that Beijingers can actually decide for themselves? In short, Tianjin is simply that relaxed, that laid back, that humorous, and that unhurried. For Tianjin, quite simply, is a city that has never known anxiety.